You think you know what we're going to talk about.
And welcome back to Three Fates Decide.
It just sounds more dramatic that way.
All right, so this week we are going to be talking about...
But just when you least expect it, we changed the game.
One Will Smith slapped Chris Rock.
I mean, we always celebrated Easter.
Harry Potter the Half-Blood Prince.
So we're going to do another free talk, freestyle thing, no planned discussion.
At the end of the day, only one thing matters. We decide.
We're going to hit the main highlights.
That is the thing, like what we were saying back in that episode.
Quick recap.
Three Fates Decide podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Three Fates Decide. My name is Sam, and I'm here with my two co-hosts, Mary and Liz. Say hello, ladies.
Hi-yo.
Hello.
And welcome back. It's been about, the time you listen to this, about 2 months since we've posted a show. We took a little hiatus. I think the three of us all needed a bit of a break since we literally went for about, recording wise, a year and a half. Posting wise, it was actually almost exactly a year straight. So, you know, every once in a while, everyone needs a break. So, but we're happy to be back and look forward to continuing on. And for our first episode back from our hiatus, wanted to tackle something that was huge in the media over the last 2 months. Something that I became quite obsessed with.
Right.
Mary, followed a little bit, and Liz, not much.
Well, I mean, to be fair, apparently to some of our listeners, this topic was really interesting because the first time we talked about this last summer, we did, an episode about this, and that episode is like currently our number one most downloaded episode.
And that's probably because of what's been happening the last 2 months is why it's our number one most downloaded episode. So I think this one will probably top it.
Yes. So we are going to go over the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard Virginia defamation case. It was a 6-week long trial. Started April 11th, and the verdict came out on June 1st, which, funnily enough, was Narcissistic Awareness Day.
Sorry.
So, as most of you may know, if you listen to our first episode on this topic, and we didn't really go into much, we kind of talked a little bit about the UK trial, but didn't really deep dive into it. I'm personally kind of deep diving into it now to kind of understand what happened, because obviously, if you know, it's too... So in the UK, Johnny Depp sued The Sun, which is a tabloid in the UK, for defamation because they called him a wife beater, and he lost. And the reason why he lost is because Amber was the star witness for The Sun, where she brought all her mountain of evidence, as she says, and the judge basically found that 12 out of the 14 incidents, Johnny abused her. So that gave The Sun the right to call him a wife beater. So a lot of pro-Amber people now are saying, well, he lost, in Amber won in the UK, and Amber didn't win. Amber wasn't on trial. Amber was a witness. Also, court is different in the UK as opposed to in the US. One thing that is really big, and it's actually kind of funny, is hearsay is allowed in the UK. A lot of the evidence that Amber provided was things her friend said that she told them. Mm-hmm. So it's like they had not, like her friends had nothing to do with the incident, but because she told them about it, they could, say their piece. They never saw anything, nothing, but that alone was enough. So it really was. And then it also kind of turns out that we have since found out that the high judge, who has since retired early, had a connection to both Amber Heard and The Sun. The Sun
course he did.
A judge's son works for the management company of the Sun and is good friends with the guy who wrote the article, Dan Wooten, and then he was very close with someone close to Amber. So there was a lot of, I guess, bias. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but we'll find out, I guess. Now, Amber is actually possibly under investigation for perjury in Australia and the UK. So we'll get into that a little bit more as we go. So,
well, she's also in trouble for smuggling the dogs in, period. Because for smuggling the dogs in, it's a federal offense in Australia.
Right. And the reason why she's under for perjury is because since then there has been evidence that shows that she knew she couldn't bring dogs. And she lied saying she had no idea, that she thought everything was taken care of, and there's now proof that that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep. But so in case you don't know, Mary and I are team Johnny. Liz is kind of whatever.
I'm just like a casual observer. I'm not like
she
super
has
invested in it.
No, nothing. Me,
She
like
was
I said,
not
I became not invested at all, which is fine. That's totally fine.
Exactly.
I am one of the people that, like, as it's going on, I actually started posting about it on TikTok and gained quite a few followers. When we did our TikTok episode, I think I had like 100 and something. I have almost 400 followers now. Just from posting about this court case. I'm going to lose them all now because I have nothing to talk about, but but it's fine. It's fine. So pretty much what the court case was about was Johnny was suing Amber Heard for $50 million for the op-ed that she wrote that got published in December of 2018. It was on 3 counts. One was the title of the op-ed, the online version, and then 2 quotes that are in op-ed itself that, even though she doesn't say his name, it definitely implies that she's talking about him. So he's saying when that op-ed came out, he lost everything, basically. He got fired from Disney. That's when the Sun came out and called him a wife beater. Then he sued the Sun. He lost that. Then he lost Fantastic Beasts. And it was kind of like a snowball effect for him. He's only done, I think, maybe 1 indie movie in the last like 6 years or so. Everyone dropped him except for Dior. Like he lost a ton. Amber was countersuing Johnny for $100 million, which we found out in closing arguments. They came up with that because, well, he was suing for 50, so we figured we might as well just go for 100. That's what her attorney said. Oh my goodness. So it was just a BS number, which why would you admit that to the jury? Oh my God.
Her attorney was an idiot. Oh my God.
We'll get into Elaine. Oh, Elaine. So she was countersuing because during the UK case, Johnny's attorney at the time, Adam Waldman, went to, it was the Daily Mail, and had 3 quotes basically that she was suing about. And she claimed that caused defamation to her because suddenly things kind of stopped. She lost a lot of time in Aquaman 2. Her script was suddenly cut when it wasn't before. L'Oreal, paused all of her stuff because they were getting threats. The ACLU, like, it was, she like came up with a whole bunch of stuff. So that's what the case basically was all about. We're not going to go through everything because I think we'd be here for 5 years. But
we're not going to do that. But we're going to hit the main highlights.
And the things that I think really were like the eye opener, like that people couldn't stop talking about. I think are the important things. So the first thing is that during opening statements, it was really the first time for us that we heard that there was any sexual assault, that he supposedly raped her with a bottle of vodka. First time I think anyone had heard that. I remember that was all over the news.
Yeah, I
that had come out.
never heard that either. until then.
Like, she didn't even mention it in the UK. Didn't mention it in the UK, like, nothing. And so that kind of right there just, I think, really put it into perspective how this court case was going to go. This court case was televised. It was on pretty much every single news outlet's YouTube page. There was Court TV's YouTube page, Law and Crime YouTube page. Like, everybody under the sun was streaming this court case. The reason why that happened, everyone thought Johnny was actually the one that requested it. Turned out the judge actually had it done because with it being a high profile case, she wanted to try and cut down as many people coming to the courthouse as possible. So how do you get people to not come to the courthouse? Well, you get better seats at home watching it on your computer or your TV, your smart TV or whatever, than actually coming to the courthouse. So she was trying to kind of do crowd control. That was the whole point. So
she's a smart woman.
Yeah.
She was a smart woman. But the court was still packed.
Still packed every day. And every time Johnny would come in, everyone would wave to him. And every time he left, they would wave to him. Amber came in, no one did anything. What was really sweet, I thought, was every time Johnny came in, his whole team stood up. All the lawyers and everything stood up until he sat down. Amber would walk in, her team barely paid attention to her. Oh my God. All right. So some of the key things. So one of the very first people that, or actually the first witness, was Johnny's sister, who was kind of like a manager type person. And she really, kind of went into how Johnny was a victim of physical abuse from their mother. And their mother would abuse, obviously, the kids and Johnny's father. And what Johnny would do is he would run and hide when something like that would happen. So this was, we'll get into it, but so that was kind of a key thing. I kind of want everyone to think of that. But she talked about, and it was brought up again when Kate James, Amber's former personal assistant, that Amber continuously called Johnny a boring old man. And Kate James made it a point that, like, Amber would complain that she didn't want to be home because Johnny and his friends were there and they were just a bunch of boring old men playing guitars and it wasn't interesting for her. So that's kind of like it's two people that kind of brought that to light. That, and if you listen to a lot of the recordings, like, Amber's taunting is talking about how, Johnny's older than her and he has more experience and, like, so of course he knows this and that and whatever and blah, 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 blah. So, like, it definitely was a thing for her. Johnny seemed to smirk at that one. One of Johnny's witnesses, Gina Duterte, was actually dismissed during her testimony. So what happened was, Amber's friend or girlfriend or whoever she is, Eve Barlow, who was sitting with Amber's attorneys in the front row of the court and was live tweeting during the trial, which is a big no-no, while Gina was on stand, went to Gina's Instagram, got a picture from like January of 2021 and cropped it so that you couldn't see the date and showed it to Amber's attorneys and was like, look, like, she's watched the court, like, she's watched the case or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. So they took it to the judge. The judge asked Gina, like, have you been following, like, did you watch any of this case? Gina was honest and said, I did see something. And so she was dismissed because witnesses are not allowed to see anything. She was dismissed. It then came out later that it was a crop photo from 2021 and should have never even been brought out. Like, it had nothing to. So Johnny's team then requested that Eve be barred from the courthouse. And she wasn't allowed in for the rest of the trial because she was live tweeting and basically cost them a witness. So then you had Johnny Depp's team had so many witnesses. It's crazy, but they had Johnny's old uh, physician, Dr. Kipper, who kind of helped him with his drug abuse and stuff like that. He mentioned that Johnny had ADHD, bipolar, insomnia, obviously substance abuse and things like that. He said every witness for Johnny has never personally witnessed Johnny being physically violent. He was also at the house in Australia after the supposed bottle vodka incident. He saw blood and saw broken glass all around the house, but and knew that that was the time that Johnny lost the finger. That's something that came up a lot. So Johnny got on the stand himself. He was on there for about 3 days, 2.5, 3 days.
Something like that, yeah.
It was, and his team kind of let him go, and the man can talk. He talks very slowly. Very, very slowly. He really thinks about what he's saying. But he's a very soft-spoken man, which is, but he, said he told the truth. He, took responsibility for his drinking. He took responsibility for him being hooked on Roxycodone. He admitted that he's pretty much done every single kind of drug under the sun in his lifetime.
But none of that was really a shock to anybody, though.
Right.
I don't think, I'm just saying, I'm not saying, I mean, the man is a fantastic actor.
100%.
I still think he looks pretty good. I mean, my mother, on the other hand, does not. She still thinks he's a fantastic actor, but she's like, his looks have gone, and I'm like, well, he is 55 years old. So I mean, but so he's not going to look like he did when he was 20 and 30. I mean, but the fact, and you also have to remember, with him doing the drugs and the drinking and the partying lifestyle that he did for years, it's not a surprise that he does look slightly older and more worn out than somebody that has been religiously taking care of themselves, watching their diet, watching their weight, working out constantly, that it may be the same age. It really, but I still think he looks pretty damn good.
Listen, man.
Call me, Johnny.
I would wouldn't hesitate.
In a heartbeat.
Yep.
In a heartbeat.
Wouldn't even hesitate.
Exactly.
And you also
I wouldn't have even hesitated when the whole hullabaloo that he abused her came out.
Yeah.
I was like, no, he didn't. There's no way. That's not. I was like, granted, I don't know the man personally, but I've seen.
Listen, I'm sure he is very toxic when he is drunk or stoned or whatever. Like,
those people are.
But their whole relationship was just toxic.
Yeah. I mean, we're not giving him a pass on any of it. We're not saying that he was completely he was completely innocent of all wrongdoing. No, you've heard the recordings. He wasn't exactly polite and nice sometimes.
No.
But you know what? He owned up to it.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
and let's see. He admits to, the text messages, the very colorful text messages, especially with Paul Bettany, where he describes what he would like to do, Amber. And that's, again, no excuse. Obviously, it was gross and should never have been said. But when you're so frustrated, number one, after what he went through with her while they were married, and then what she was doing to him after,
Mhm.
like, it was just ridiculous.
Exactly.
And he said, like, this case was really the first opportunity he's ever had to speak his truth. He didn't get to really defend himself in the UK. Like, he didn't get to go into everything like he is here. So, if any, and he constantly said it's not about the money. It's not about all he like, he's never going to get his life back. He knows that regardless, because there's always going to be people that believe Amber.
Her.
And so he's never going to have the life that he had before. And he knows that. But he wants to get some of his life back. He wants to get his good name back with at least most of the people. So,
Exactly.
yeah. Talking about the Australia incident with the vodka bottle that tore off the tip of his finger, basically under the nail, which, ouch.
Yes, that's just
He described exactly what happened, how he was sitting, what happened, blah, blah, blah. And then he did admit, because when he went to the hospital, he said he did it. Never blamed Amber. And he said the reason why that he did that is because he didn't want Amber to get in trouble. Like, she could get arrested for that.
right.
And he didn't want that. So he lied. But after that, he has very consistently said that she was the one that, and there is audio recording, it's actually from Amber's phone, of her apologizing to him for doing it in the background, and Dr. Kipper saying that she did it, and his security team saying that she did it. And her story of Australia doesn't coincide with the audio. And the reason why this audio was not presented in court is because it had other people's voices in it. The only audio recordings that they were allowed to produce was just him and Amber, just Johnny and Amber.
Right.
So if anyone else was in on the recording, they couldn't let the jury hear it. But I wish that the jury had heard that recording, because then she'd have nothing to say now. But yeah, they talked about the human feces on the bed, which then
Ew.
caused the hashtag Amber Turd to kind of go crazy
Oh my
on the
god.
internet. But she blamed dogs.
I know.
He said they're 2 teacup Yorkies. Like, there's no way what I saw came from them. Like, no way. So yeah. And then they played the audio where Amber does admit did hit him, and but saying, I didn't punch you. I hit you like this. I didn't, like, deck you, whatever. You're fine. You're being a baby, blah, blah, blah. And that right there, I think, you just admitted that you struck him, and you have no remorse for it. And then obviously the one where she said, "Tell the world, Johnny." Tell them, tell a judge and a jury, I, Johnny Depp, a man, I was a victim of domestic violence also, and see who believes you. And his response to her in the recording and even in court was just yes. So it's a very mic drop moment. Amber's team, Mr. Rottenborn, you can just tell there was a lot of animosity between Johnny and Mr. Rottenborn. But Johnny, very calm for a witness. Man, he had some zingers. We got a lot of memes from Johnny's testimony. The mega pint.
that was my favorite.
Yeah.
That was my favorite. Yeah.
Isn't happy hour all the time?
Yeah.
When Rottenborn was talking about, you drank a lot, and he at this time, and he just looked at him and goes, "Were you there?" Yeah. So funny. So funny. Amber's team did a lot of objection hearsays. In fact, at one point they were cross-examining Ben King, who was the property manager. Basically, he like came and ran the properties in Australia and in the UK and whatever for Johnny.
Right.
And he was there again in that April incident 2015 when Johnny lost his finger and Amber supposedly got, raped by a bottle.
Raped with bottle.
And while Amber's team was questioning, it was Adam Nadelhaft, Amber's side, asked Ben a question. And in order to answer the question, he said, well, Dr. Kip, because he said, how did you find out about the finger or whatever? And he said, well, Dr. Kipper told me. And the attorney goes, objection hearsay. And the judge just looks at him and she goes, you asked the question. Now, everyone just at that point made a, huge joke about it. It actually, he did technically do the right thing, but he didn't do it correctly, if that makes any sense. What he should have said was, objection, move to strike from the record because it is hearsay. Instead, he said objection hearsay, and he got all flustered. And yeah, but it was pretty funny. A lot of people were using Jim Carrey's "Liar, Liar" to meme that. And
my favorite, I think my favorite part of when she was when was it Elaine Breedhoff? Is it Breedhoff? Yeah. She kept going, Amica cream. Did you know if Amber was wearing Amica cream? What the fuck is Amica cream, people?
Yeah, arnica. Say it with me. Arnica.
Arnica. Arnica cream. That makes sense.
Yes.
Amica cream. Amica cream. Amica cream. I'm just like, oh my God. Stop with the Amica cream.
And would ask the question 15 different times. Like,
I know.
So one of Johnny's witnesses was good old Isaac Baruch, who is one of Johnny's longest friends, also lived at the penthouses. And they were talking about how he saw Amber the day after the May 21st incident, which is apparently when Johnny threw the phone, and that was the last time they kind of saw each other before Amber filed for divorce and blah blah blah. And he said, I saw her the next day, and she didn't have any makeup on as far as I could see, and there was no bruising. And Elaine just kept going through different days. Was she wearing arnica cream? Was she wearing Amica cream? Was she wearing Amica cream? Do you know if she was wearing Amica cream? And to the point that Isaac just started laughing. And the judge, obviously to control it, was sir, you have to. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. But after a while, it was just just stop it.
I know.
It's the same. Rottenborn kept saying, did I read that correct? Did I read that correctly?
Yeah.
Did I read that correctly? And Johnny finally looked at him and goes, yes, you read very well.
Yeah.
Just
there
was what if
was it with the she did the same thing with the with the psychologist.
Oh, with Curry?
Yeah.
With,
no.
With Hughes, when she kept calling Hughes Curry.
But it was it was about the muffins.
Oh, yes.
Remember the muffins?
Johnny's team hired a forensic psychologist to basically interview Amber, go over her medical records. And, this was a huge, huge thing because Dr. Curry came in and basically said, I examined her myself. I looked over her records and all this and basically diagnosed her with borderline personality disorder. Went through basically how, she over exaggerates everything. all of her stories are just like, crazy. Basically, what we saw on the stand with Amber is what Curry described in her testimony. So, when she was being cross-examined by Elaine was stuck on the fact that Dr. Curry's husband bought muffins, so he must have known that Amber was coming to her office. And Dr. Curry was like, no. He's like, and I have, because she is an expert witness, so she's done a lot of high-profile cases. She's like, when I have high-profile cases, I empty my office. No one's there but me. They have to go to another office to see patients and whatever. She's like, and I always bring muffins to have the person be more comfortable. So it's kind of like a conversation as opposed to them treating it like I'm going to a psychologist or psychiatrist. And she was running late the day that she was going to meet Amber. So she asked her husband to go and pick up muffins. He knew that she was doing a high profile client, but didn't know who it was. Elaine could not let the muffins go. So then, another meme. Do you know the Muffin Man?
Exactly. I was like, oh my God, Elaine, just get off the damn muffins.
Yeah. Just stop it.
Silly.
Yeah. So, but Dr. Curry did diagnose Amber with histrionic and borderline personality disorders, and basically saying that it was a predictive factor in women who instigate violence against their partner. So, one of my favorite testimonies though was Alejandro Romero, who works for the Eastern Columbia building, which is where the penthouses were, and he's the doorman. He was in his car. It was he just did not want anything. Like, he kept saying, he was like, I just want this to be over. He's like, I don't care. He at one point started vaping during his testimony. And then at the very end, they were still asking him questions. He put on his seatbelt and started driving during his testimony. To the point, when it ended, the tape ended, because it was a recorded. The judge kind of just sat there, shaking her head, what the hell did I just watch? What did I just watch?
And this is one of Amber's witnesses.
Oh, this was Johnny's witness.
Oh, it was Johnny's witness? Oh.
Yeah. But again, claiming that he saw Amber the next day. He didn't appear to be wearing makeup, no bruises. He also mentioned that Amber had brought up men to the penthouse multiple times. He had seen Elon Musk in the apartment, multiple times, because you can see their balcony from the gym. It's on the same floor, and so but Johnny had his security team be witnesses. He had ACLU, which is where we learned that Amber has not donated the full $3.5 million that she pledged. We're going to get into those two words, but that she pledged. She's only given to date herself, I think it was either $250,000 or $350,000 herself. And let's see, I think it was $100 million was from Johnny Depp, but that was the first initial payment, because so that's the whole thing. Johnny initially, instead of giving Amber the money, because this was the divorce settlement, and she said she was going to just give it to the two places, the ACLU, which is the American Civil Liberties Union, and the Los Angeles Children's Hospital. That's who she was going to split the $7 million between the two. So Johnny sent the first payment to both locations. Amber flipped out and said, no, send it to me. And she said, because she wanted the tax break. That's why she wanted it to be sent to him. Well, and we can go over this now. We have since found out that Amber did not give much more than what was originally given. I think it was $250,000 each each place. Elon Musk gave another $500,000 to each place, but that's not included in the settlement.
7 million. Yeah.
3.5 million per. And then she said the reason why she didn't complete the donation after she argued. Amber was arguing with Camille Vasquez, who's now partner at her law firm because of how well she did during this trial.
That woman is my hero.
My hero. I want her to defend me.
Seriously, I want my daughter to look at her and go, "I want to be her, mommy."
Right.
Because I'll be like, Emma, I want you to be her.
Exactly. Go be her. Go be her.
You be her. Don't be mommy. Be her.
But so Camille was cross-examining Amber and basically was like, to this day, you have not donated the $7 million to charity. And Amber was like, I did. I pledged it. And she's like, no. She's like, but you didn't donate. She's like, I use pledge and donation synonymously. They mean the same thing.
No, they don't.
No. Yeah, exactly. But that's the whole thing. And she said she donated the $7 million. She didn't. So then her excuse was, well, Johnny sued me. Camille then turns around and said, you got your last check in February, 13 months before Johnny sued you. So you had 13 months to make, and listen, I'm not saying she had to pay the full $7 million right away. She wants the tax break, she can take time, whatever. But you didn't even give anything during those 13 months that you had that $7 million.
Right?
You gave nothing. And then you blame it that Johnny sued you. I didn't sue you right away, sweetheart. So,
Honestly, it just sounds like she was trying to pocket the money.
Exactly.
That's exactly what she did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the whole pledging thing is complete nonsense. I mean, any of the three of us could say, oh, we're going to pledge, I don't know, $100,000 to whatever charity. But it doesn't mean anything if we don't actually give them the money.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I could pledge, well, and that, again, people started making memes, like going to the grocery store and it's like, oh, your total is like, 300 whatever dollars groceries. Well, I'll pledge that. That's not how that works.
Exactly.
You can't pledge like that stuff. So
yeah, I mean, I can sit here right now and say I'm going to pledge $100 million to breast cancer research. It means Jack Crab if I don't actually have $100 million to give to breast cancer research.
Correct. Yeah. So then, Johnny's team brought in, more security. The one guy, Travis, was there on the staircase incident, which we'll go into in a couple minutes. They brought in a expert on Hollywood, basically saying that Johnny's career really took a deep dive after the op-ed. And then they brought in a forensic accountant who showed that he, lost basically what he was suing for, the $50 million, and explained how they came up with that number. We found out that Amber tried to extort Johnny, which they didn't really go into, but it actually was going through. So real quick, I'll go into it. So May 21st, right? Is the day Johnny's mom passed away. Johnny hadn't seen Amber in a month since April 21st, her birthday. They got into a fight. Johnny left. He didn't go back for a month. His mom passed away on the 21st. Johnny asked to come and get some of his stuff or whatever. And he told her, I think via text, like, I'm done. Like, I want a divorce. I can't do this anymore, whatever. So at this point, like, in what I think happened is Amber and her friends started panicking because let me just lay this out. So Johnny owns 5 penthouses, right? Amber and Johnny had one. Amber's best friend, Rocky, and her fiance had one. Isaac Johnny's friend had one. One was used as Amber's closet. And then Amber's sister was living in one as well. But she was kind of like in and out. Everyone lived there for free. Johnny paid all 5. None of them lived there. So Johnny was going to divorce Amber. Amber and her friends would have had like a month, get their stuff, get out. Right?
Right.
So he comes over the 21st to get more stuff. They apparently get into a fight. This is when he supposedly threw the phone at her. According to his security, when they walked in, Johnny was nowhere near her. According to Amber, he was like holding her hair and pulling her head back. And like, so there's conflicting stories. Apparently Raquel was there. She was on the phone with her friend Io, who had hung up to call 911. I think Rocky had also called 911 after Johnny had left already. In fact, the 911 call, Raquel was outside the building. She went down. They're on the top floor. She went downstairs and outside of the building and then called 911. Not while this was happening. This was all after Johnny was gone. Raquel was there, saw everything, waited until Johnny left Amber, went downstairs, went outside the building, called 911. Then a few minutes later from New York, Io also called 911. So 2 sets of cops showed up. Both sets of cops said they didn't see anything on her face, didn't see any, destruction or anything. And Amber and none of her friends were willing to give a statement, nothing. So they left. Both sets of cops. In fact, the second set of cops had body cam footage, and Amber's sitting there in the living room chatting with her friends, like, what's going on, whatever. And so that was that. So after that situation, Johnny actually was leaving country. I think he went to New York, and then he was leaving the country for Alice in Wonderland, Look Through the Looking Glass press tour. Right? So she knew he was out. Her attorney sent a letter to his attorneys saying that this is what I want. I want 2 out of the 5 penthouses with all expenses paid. She wants a Range Rover with all expenses paid. She wants $14 million in like alimony, basically. And then a monthly stipend of a certain amount. And they broke down how she got that money. 10,000 of, I can't even remember. I think it was like $50,000 a month or something like that. It was like an obscene amount of money. It was more than 50,000. It was an obscene amount of money per month. And when they looked at the breakdown, like 10,000 of that was for entertainment and fun and shopping and all that stuff. And so they sent that letter and said, this is what she wants. You have until May 26th, or she's going public about, whatever. May 27th, she showed up at the courthouse with a bruise on her face. No one had seen all week. Bruise on her face. TMZ magically there. She filed for divorce and a TRO, or restraining order. Johnny wasn't even in the country at the time, or wasn't even on that side of the country. He was on the East Coast getting ready to go to Europe. She knew he wasn't around. So during cross-examination, Camille showed during her testimony for, I think it was her divorce, either divorce or for the UK trial, one of the two. Amber slips up and admits that she alerted TMZ. Of course, while she's on the stand, she's denying it. No, that's not what happened. No. Every time Camille caught her in a lie, it was, no, that's not what I'm talking about. No, that's not it. No. It was that, and then also the video that TMZ had of Johnny beating up the cabinets. So that's important for, we'll talk about that when we go through rebuttal. So, yeah, so she tried to extort Johnny. So, and there's a phone call, and I think they actually played it where, I don't know if they played it actually, but there's a phone call where she said, I literally, what else was I supposed to do? I was only going to have 21 days to get out of the apartment if I didn't do this. And he was like, do you really think I would have kicked you out? Like, if you had reached out to me and said, can I please stay here for a couple of months until I get my own place and we all get settled? He's like, I would have said yes. He's like, you didn't have to do this. And yeah. So but Amber's testimony. So before Amber testified, they brought in Dr. Hughes, who I got so annoyed with immediately, because right away when she was talking about the victim, she always used she or female, to describe a victim. To describe the abuser, it was always he, him, male. And she did it throughout the entire time and basically said, Amber has PTSD. It's all because of Johnny and blah, blah, blah. So then cross-examination, Johnny's team brought it up. You kept talking about victim is a she and abuser is a he. Have you ever testified where the male was the victim? And she said no. And then he was like, have you ever spoken to a male victim? And she said yes, but only in same-sex couples. She's never dealt with any male victim in a female to male relationship. So to her, it doesn't exist that males can be the victim to females. So
right.
And they went over her testing. They saw that, and they had her tests and stuff. She didn't fill out half of the paperwork, and she was just like, well, it was redundant. Like, if it's going to be shown in court, why would you not fill it out correctly? Why? So, Amber's team was all about how Dr. Curry is not board certified and Dr. Hughes is board certified. And listen, I've worked with both, non-board and board. It's just who took the test and who didn't. No big deal.
Basically.
Yeah. Amber's testimony was just really, first of all, she kept staring at the jury. Like, she would stare them down. She would listen to the question and then turn and look at the jury and answer to the jury. Like, every single question.
Mm-hmm.
We'd listen, turn, look at the jury. Like, I can't even imagine how uncomfortable. And anytime there was like a sidebar, she would just stare. She wasn't staring at the jury, she was staring at Johnny. They asked if she knew why Johnny wasn't staring or looking at her. And Johnny had come out and said, like, you'll never look me in the eye again, whatever. Elaine mocked Johnny, saying that when talking to Amber. But, of course, Amber was like, he can't look at me because of, he's guilty and he knows it and blah, blah, blah. But Amber, the problem with Amber's testimony is every single thing, like, doesn't mean that that's not how it happens, but she would over-describe.
Well, the one thing that really got to me, and I watched a lot of body language analysis of this trial and of the people. And one of the biggest things that they had pointed, I had noticed it, but I didn't really pay much attention to it until he pointed it out and he was talking about it. And he was used at, reliving that pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And there was a lot of times, and again, like, people online catch stuff. There was a lot of times where, like, she was describing, like, the one time that he was apparently, like, punching her in the head over and over and over again. She kept saying, I was punching me. I was punching me. She would slip up and, like, instead of saying he was punching me, she said, I was punching me. It was like, it's like she was like, slip of the tongue, not even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then, she would describe like these horrific scenarios again, like the Australia thing where, there was glass bottles broken on the floor, and to the, her arms were cut up, her feet were cut up, she was bleeding. He penetrated her with the bottle, and she couldn't. All she kept praying was, that she hoped it wasn't broken. You would know, like, if you're a
Yeah.
dude, like we can feel in there.
Yeah.
So she would know very well, and like
she
the
would
biggest
know
thing with
quite
that
quickly if it
was
broke.
yes, and the whole thing about that was she said she never saw the bottle, whatever, and then King mentioned when he was testifying that he had pictures that none of them had seen, so Amber's team took it as evidence. So they showed pictures of 2 vodka bottles, and she was like, this first time I've seen this was yesterday. She's like, and now thinking about it, I felt pounding on like my pelvis, and it's definitely it's like that square bottle is the bottle. And like before she came out and said it, I sat there and I was like, she's about to say that bottle's it. That's the bottle that he like, and it's just like she would just make things up on the fly. She never saw the
Yeah.
bottle, but that's it. She feels it in her gut that's it. Really, she cried multiple times with 0 tears. A lot of people thought maybe she was like sniffing coke or something. I know a lot of people were saying she was possibly like menthol or something like that in the tissue to try and make herself cry. I don't know. There was a point at one time where she's like, rubbing her nose, and she stopped to pose for a picture. She like I said, she would over describe things, like talking about how her dog stepped on a bee, which has absolutely zero, talking about the red lights, talking about the dirty carpet, talking about the owner of the Hicksville place had a black mesh shirt, like things that had no business to be with us in the story. And they say liars tend to over describe to make it seem more realistic, when in actual reality it makes it less.
Exactly.
She
Well, I like the fact that she perjured herself on the stand, but I don't think anybody actually ever really caught it on her first day of testimony, or maybe it was her second day. She talked about how she had never never physically hit him, and then several hours later, she goes, "That was the first." Or she talked about how I would punch him to try to get him off of me. I was like fighting him, everything. And then all of a sudden she said, the very first time I ever hit him was the stair incident.
Yeah.
I'm like,
nope, I caught that. I 100% caught that. I thought I was the only one. And I actually posted about it on TikTok. I said, Amber just perjured herself, because she literally just said it was the same day that in Australia, it was that she hit him, get him off of her. And then again, yes, as you said, the staircase incident, she said that was the first time she ever got a blow on him or whatever.
Landed a blow on him. I'm like,
yeah.
My mouth fell open and I was flabbergasted when I was like, she said what now?
Yeah. Talked about December 2015. Apparently, like so with Australia, by the way, in April of 2015, after all that, her supposedly getting raped and all that stuff, she never received medical attention. She didn't go to the hospital. She didn't do anything. She went home the next day. She supposedly told her friend, Rocky, still never went to the hospital. Could see her personal nurse. Her nurse never had anything in the note about her having cuts or bruises or anything. Nothing. December of 2015, you have it's the day before she's supposed to go on the James Corden show. She talks about this horrific incident where he takes her by the hair and drags her into a room. First he headbutts her. After he closes his fist like he's about to punch her, he decides to headbutt her. she smacks her head up against a brick wall. He drags her into a bedroom. He holds her down, face down, and is just continuing to punch, that she thinks she's about to die. She said she thought she was going to die. And then she said, and there's pictures, and they show pictures before they, show it to the jury and to everybody. They showed her and said, is this the picture, from right after, the day after, whatever? And she's like, yes, this is me with my, my broken nose, 2 black eyes and a busted lip and whatever. And they show the jury, and it was the most underwhelming picture. And again, I'm not saying that, it's, I don't want people to think like, oh, what she should, you want to see her with 2 black, but when you're talking about this horrific incident that happened,
Yeah.
that you have, this busted nose, busted lip, these 2 black eyes, and I don't see anything. I saw the lip, but you see she chews on her lip.
Right.
There was some discoloration that could be from anything, but her nose looked fine.
I'm sorry, and Sam, you can back me up on this one. As working in the medical field, you've seen a broken nose.
Yes.
A broken nose is swollen and it's bloody.
Yes.
Very rarely is a broken nose not bloody. Very rare. They always swell.
Like your head bleeds the worst. So when you break your nose, like every once in a while, it depends on how the break is, like that it would actually stop the blood. But like, yeah, like you said,
Right.
like it's a bloody mess, and your eyes are swollen and it's
Yes.
black. It's a horrific thing to see. You
Yeah.
need to have it set.
Yeah, my daughter actually headbutted me in the nose one time. She did not break my nose, thank God, but it did bleed a little bit. And the next day, one of my eyes was puffy, and there was bruising around the eye from where she headbutted me.
Yeah.
So that was an infant, or like, she was only, I think she was only like a year or so old at the time. So you're telling me that Amber had this happen to her with a grown man with his fist just wailing on her, supposedly punching her in the head, punching her in the nose, in the face, in the eyes. You're trying to tell me that she was able to, in less than 24 hours, get rid of all the swelling and cover up all the bruising? I don't think so.
And the busted lip with red lipstick.
Exactly.
All I need is a red matte lipstick. And like, here's the whole thing is, it's so funny when they talk about, like, she's like, well, ice. What kind of magical ice do you have?
Seriously.
Yes,
Ice
cuts down on
swelling,
swelling.
yes.
It doesn't,
But it doesn't
remove it.
move it.
Like,
Exactly.
come on. Like,
no. And the she called her cover up kit a bruise kit.
Yes, her color correction kit to hide the bruises. She called it a bruise kit. Except here's the whole thing: she called it a theater bruise kit. There is such a thing as a bruise kit for theater actors. You put bruises on said face. So again, I think that was another slip, because as soon as she said it, she realized what she said, and she quickly, not a bruise kit. I called it my bruise kit, but it's a color correction kit. Like,
yeah.
And so here's the whole thing: is originally during opening statements, Elaine got up there and said, this is the color correction kit that she used. This is the exact one that she kept on her 24/7, blah, 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 blah. And the makeup company that, oh my God, it's like, it's out of my head, right? Huh?
I think it was Milani.
Yes, Milani.
Yeah, Milani.
Milani came out and said, dude, that kit didn't come out till 2017. You were already divorced. Like, you lied. But because the attorneys can see online and all that, when Amber was on the stand, they quickly corrected that. Real quick and said, well, it wasn't this one exactly, but mine was kind of like this. And obviously how you do it is you put the foundation and moisturizer on first and then the color correction. No, that's wrong. The color correction on first.
Exactly.
I can tell you is that if she actually has like a concealer kit or whatever that's good enough to hide bruises, I'm pretty sure a lot of people would want to know what it is so they can like do it for like, under eye circles.
Exactly. I was just gonna say
Exactly.
I need it for my under eye circles, and I need to know what ice she uses because I got them puffy bags. I need to get rid of that shit, and I need to get. I need that. I need it to get rid of them under eyes. Like,
Well, and
come
like
on,
there
help me
is
up.
makeup to hide. There's makeup to hide tattoos. Even then, they're still slightly seen under.
Yeah,
It's
and the makeup to
is
cover
anything.
tattoo tends to rub off on stuff.
Rubs off
So
on stuff. You can still slightly see it, and it's thick, so people would notice if you were
exactly.
wearing it. So
Mhm.
it just, just ah. Um. So needless. Oh, and then the staircase incident. Talking about that Amber's sister was there, and so here's the whole thing. So remember, I was talking about Travis, who is one of the security guards. Mentioned that at the time when he came up the stairs, Amber and Johnny were fighting on like the platform or whatever, and Amber
Right.
struck Johnny, and then Travis went in and got in between the two. Amber came up and said, well, my sister came in between the two of us. Johnny ran up threw his Red Bull can at me, ran up the stairs and went and like pushed my sister, and my sister almost fell down the stairs, and all I could think about was Kate Moss and the stairs, and so I punched him. Now, even in her story, it makes no sense if her sister was in between her and Johnny. How could he almost push the sister down the stairs if Johnny came up the stairs? So that's number one. Then
Right.
Whitney herself came on and said she was in between the two. That Johnny did strike her, mentioned nothing about almost falling down the stairs. But and then Amber struck Johnny, and then Johnny repeatedly hit Amber multiple times. It's the only person is said to have witnessed any physical violence. All of Amber's other friends, who she's not friends with any of them anymore, including the makeup artist that did her makeup for the um James Corden show, is no longer her friend. Like, none of these people are her friends anymore, supposedly. I have a conspiracy theory on that, but none of these people are her friends anymore, and none of them came to court. Everything was a video dep or a virtual, and they all, said they never saw Johnny hit her or anything. They saw him be jealous. They saw him, this, that, or the other thing. Whitney, I thought it was funny because, she talked about how Johnny was always stoned and blah, blah, blah. And then at one point she was like, I don't know how many times I was sober. Like, you could, like, we can't trust you. You were high off your butt half the time. How are we supposed to know if what you're saying is the truth? Like, come on. But so yeah, so Amber and her sister, two conflicting stories, but the big thing was that Amber mentioned Kate Moss. So I'll get
Right.
back to Kate Moss. Amber brought up a couple of other people, a lot of expert witnesses for her, other than like her freeloading friends. The funniest thing was one of the witnesses, the freeloading friend, was the one that snuck in and was living in the penthouse without Johnny knowing. And she talked about how scared she was of Johnny when he like kicked her out. Yeah, you were freeloading in his apartment and he didn't know who you were.
Right.
You got scared because he kicked you out. I would have kicked you out too. Called the cops on you too. Like,
Yeah,
really?
that's what I would have done.
You know? One thing though is Rocky's fiance at the time. I guess they got married and they've since divorced or whatever. They did cut out one part of his deposition, but it is available online. You search for it. He does mention that Rocky told him about Amber having multiple relations. And he did go into that she has had a male come to the penthouse over 30 times. He couldn't say if it was over 50 times, but it was a lot, is how he kind of put it. But the part that they cut out was that Rocky told him that she was having a three-way a couple of times with Cara Delevingne and Elon Musk. So she cheated on Johnny. I'm just saying. Oh, and then we saw video of the day after Johnny left the apartment, the 22nd of May. She brought James Franco up at like 11 o'clock at night. And he was all like, leaning his head on her shoulder and stuff. Yeah, okay. But so Amber had her acting coach come on, said that Amber's like behavior changed as a result of like her being with Johnny. Mentioned that Amber can't cry on command because she sucks at crying.
Mm-hmm.
So I think everyone in the world was like, you don't say.
Really?
Yeah, they brought in Johnny's ex agent. Basically said Johnny was already, in trouble prior. Disney was tired of him because he was always late and this, that, and the other thing. But she wasn't happy that she got fired. So I mean, listen, she could be telling the truth, but I don't know. Yeah, she basically said after a while he became very difficult to work with. He was very unprofessional, and that's what started causing him to, that's why Disney fired him, basically, is what she was saying. His former business manager and friend, who was saying that Johnny was spending too much money. This is also the man that video of Johnny beating up the cabinets. Everyone thinks it's the day his mother died. No, the day his mother died was when he went to the penthouse on May 21st. So the incident with the cabinets was when he found out that this man, Bruce Witkin, no, not Bruce Witkin, I lied, Joel Mandel, stole millions of dollars from Johnny. And that's why he was banging the cabinets and stuff like that. He just found out that someone that he trusted, two people actually that he trusted, stole money from him. A lot of money. And he sued him, and the guy settled. They brought in Adam Waldman, Johnny's attorney for the UK trial. It was a waste of time because he couldn't say anything because of attorney-client privilege. So I really didn't understand the point. It was literally like a waste of time. They brought in a social media forensic analysis, which I thought was actually kind of stupid on Amber's team's part, because they really kind of showed the jury that the public was on Johnny's side, because they were bringing up the hashtags on Twitter. They were trying to prove that like Johnny and his team did a smear campaign online, bought bots and stuff like that. But the one thing that was mentioned was that there was a really large amount of people that used justice for Johnny. So that kind of told the jury public was on Johnny's side. But I thought the best part was they kept saying hashtag Amber Turd in the court. They brought in Ellen Barkin, who was Johnny's like ex-fling from the 90s. And they shot a movie together. They started sleeping with each other. It was nothing too serious. She mentioned that he was jealous, or whatever. And then she talked about this one time in a hotel room. She was in there with other people. He was fighting with someone, and he got angry and he threw a bottle of wine in the group's general direction, but not technically at anybody, and it hit a wall. So that was her testimony. They talked to someone from Disney, basically trying to prove that the op-ed didn't cause Disney to fire Amber, but they didn't talk to anyone high enough Like, this woman was like, as far as I know, no one read the op-ed. She's like, but you'd have to speak to my boss or, what. You need to talk to the top execs of Disney if you're going to talk to anybody. So again, I thought it was a stupid thing. They brought in an orthopedic surgeon to basically prove that Johnny's finger wasn't severed the way that he said, that it was actually a crush injury, possibly because Amber said that it was from him bashing a phone. It never existed, by the way, up against a wall. She kept talking about this phone that wasn't in any pictures. One picture of the area, she's like, well, the phone was actually behind, like behind the person that's taking the picture, so it's not in the picture. How convenient. So they brought Dr. David Spiegel, forensic psychologist, who basically said, like, diagnosed Johnny without ever speaking to Johnny, which is very unethical, and diagnosed him based off of his Pirates of the Caribbean movies. So yeah, makes zero sense. But he was busted the moment, like, he basically said he never met Johnny, and so it's unethical for him to diagnose him if he's never even talked to him. Like, how do you diagnose someone and you've never talked to somebody? Like, it's just not. But it's funny. So apparently Amber's team was looking for a forensics psychiatrist, and someone said, "Oh, Dr. David Spiegel, there's two of them. I think they picked the wrong one. The other guy is definitely a lot more like professional or whatever." So I think that's pretty funny.
Oh my gosh.
They brought in an entertainment industry consultant. Johnny also had one. Amber's kind of was like sprouting all this stuff about, how, again, she's an expert, and how Amber's career started, going downhill after, the UK trial and stuff like that. And Johnny's team basically said, she started comparing Amber, because basically they were saying that Aquaman was Amber's like moment. She should have skyrocketed after that. She wasn't the main character. And, like, I'm sorry, and this was even before it, and I'm not trying to be biased. I didn't like her in it. I didn't like her in Aquaman, but whatever.
No.
So she compared.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
But I also heard that in Aquaman, for that the quote unquote chemistry that you see between Jason Momoa and her,
Editing magic.
all fake.
Yeah,
there was no chemistry between the two of them whatsoever.
Nope. But what was funny was this entertainment, consultant was comparing her to Jason Momoa. That, Zendaya. Who else did she mention? She mentioned a couple of different people. Like, Amber should be on the same wavelength as them by now because of Aquaman. And it's like, you cannot compare. So like like Johnny's team really honed in, like, how are you getting, because like she like this woman compared Amber's career to Jason Momoa, Zendaya, what's her name, Wonder Woman, Gadot.
Ghetto.
Yeah,
Gal Gadot,
and I think there was someone else, and like basically saying that Amber should be at the same level as them. And it's like, whoa, child, like, how are you comparing these people? And so like Johnny's team like ripped her apart. Like, you're saying that she should, look, Jason Momoa, first of all, has been acting since the 90s. Like, he was in Baywatch, he was in, like, which that was news to me. And he was the title character of the movie. Like, hello.
right?
Zendaya is Zendaya. Like, listen, some people aspire to a lot more, whatever. So that was that. And then Amber's team was done, and then Johnny's team rebutted. in the rebuttal, that's when like the surprise witnesses showed up. So they had the guy from Hicksville. The Hicksville trailer, I didn't really get into that, but apparently Johnny like got jealous of a friend of Amber's because she hugged Amber, and he went over and like grabbed her wrist and was squeezing it and said, do you know how much pressure or how many pounds of pressure it takes to break a human wrist or whatever? So the owner of the trailer park, who was there that night, basically said he never saw any aggression from Johnny, and he saw more aggression from Amber, to the point that Johnny even like kind of cowered. Also, Amber and her friends all talked about how Johnny like destroyed this trailer. Like it was like an absolute disaster, destroyed. This guy said, no, a sconce was broken, so I had to buy two so that they matched it. It was $62 worth of damage. Like that was it. Elaine, being Elaine, said, oh, you're just here for your 15 minutes of fame because you went on Twitter, and that's how you got here, was because you commented on that umbrella guy's Twitter page on Twitter about how that's not what happened, and so you follow that umbrella guy. He's like, I have no idea who that umbrella guy is. Number one, I think I'd mentioned him in the last episode that we did, that first heard. That umbrella guy is amazing. So kudos
He is.
to him.
I love him.
I love
so
him.
Much. I watch him, and the guy that I was watching that did the body analysis is the behavioral arts.
There you go.
Yeah, because he did the body analysis of Chris Rock and Will Smith as well. Yeah, so it was really interesting. So that's how I actually got to. That's actually how I found his page, his YouTube channel, and so I've been kind of following along when he does the body analysis of when he was doing the body analysis of the trials and everything. It was really interesting.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's pretty cool. I'll have to look at him.
Definitely.
So then they also brought up Morgan Tremaine, who used to work for TMZ. Now, TMZ tried to block his testimony because, they want to save themselves, because he basically would be calling out a source, which he did not. He never technically named the source. So I don't necessarily think that they will sue him because he technically didn't name. He implied a lot. So basically he discussed that TMZ was definitely called and told to go to the courthouse on May 27th, that Amber will have a bruise on her cheek. She's going to stop and turn for you to take the picture and blah, blah, blah. Because Amber was like, I don't know how the press got to the courthouse and how they knew. Press is not sitting outside a courthouse waiting for you just in case you decide you want to do this.
Exactly. They have to be called.
Exactly. So he did mention that, and then he talked about that video, and he basically said, and Johnny's team did a great job. So if how long does it take once you get a video for it to go up online? And he said, it depends. He's like, they have to check the source, they have to check the copyright so that they can't get sued, whatever. And they said, well, if you get it from the direct source, how long does it take? He's like, about 15 minutes once all the copyright stuff is done. It takes about 15 minutes from getting it to putting it up online. And they go, and how long did it take for you to put that video up? He goes, 15 minutes. So, boom. And once again, Elaine got up and said, well, there's TV cameras here. You're here for your 15 minutes of fame. And he goes, I'm actually going to be like a target for TMZ. Like, so I'm putting myself in harm's way. He's like, but if you want to think that, go ahead. And then he goes, but I could also say the same thing about you taking Amber Heard as a client. Everyone behind Elaine, like their jaws dropped. I sat there, I was like, oh, burn. You just got her. The lovely Kate Moss did a video, a virtual deposition, basically stating that Johnny never threw her down the stairs, and that the incident that Amber implied, She slipped down the stairs in the rain in Bahamas or Jamaica or something. They were on vacation. Johnny wasn't even there when it happened, but he heard her, I guess, scream or whatever, and he ran to her, picked her up, carried her to the room, got her medical attention, like, and was just like doting on her, and was just very, very sweet.
Yeah,
So
because I know she has said in interviews before that he's the only man that's ever been able to take care of her.
Yeah.
Or that has taken care of her, that could take care of her. It's obvious there's still a lot of love there, whether it not necessarily so much romantic love as more of a platonic. Yes, we were together at one point, but yes, we're not together now, but I still love him. I still care about him.
Right. Well, yeah,
You
she
know,
kept saying,
you know?
like, I'd be more than happy to be a witness. And Johnny would never ask her because he knows she's very shy. She doesn't like doing press. She doesn't like doing all that stuff. She volunteered because she got so angry. Go Kate Moss. But then, Amber comes up and saying, of course, people are going to come out of the woodwork. Are you saying Kate Moss is doing this for publicity? Like, I'm sorry, but she may not be, modeling as much as she did back in the 90s, but she's still more famous than you.
Seriously, she always will be.
Yeah, like, it's Kate Moss. Like, come on.
I mean, everybody, their mother knows the name Kate Moss practically.
Yeah, exactly. Johnny got back up on the stand again. He got a little sassier this time. I think he was just kind of over it the second time. But, again, he basically said, like, listen, I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. But at the end of the day, and he just reiterated, this was never about the money. All he wanted to do was say his truth. And at the end of the day, he got there. He said his truth. And he actually made me cry, his last thing that he said. So then Amber's team rebutted. They just had Dr. Hughes come back up one more time. Basically counter Dr. Curry again, because Dr. Curry had gotten up again during rebuttal. Amber got up again, which that was a disaster. Because they had also brought in, they were trying to prove that Amber's pictures were fake. Both of them actually had picture analysis guys that came in to show that the pictures, Johnny Seen was trying to show the pictures were altered. Amber's side was saying, no, it's not. It's just the programs and blah, 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 blah. Like, well, then the one picture where, she was saying it was after the 21st, it literally looked identical. The pictures looked identical. One just looked oversaturated, right? And she's like, no, all I did was I turned on the other lights, so like the lights around the mirror, like makeup and stuff turned on. She's like, but literally the pictures were identical. Every piece of hair was exactly in the same place. Like, it was identical. So they took the metadata, or because they covered the metadata. So they brought the metadata up. Both pictures were taken at the exact same time, down to the millisecond. So it was the same picture.
Yeah.
It was just altered. So at that point, to me, I'd be like, I don't believe any of your pictures. There's one picture after like the December 2015 incident. They didn't go into this, and I just don't know if anyone noticed, but she's in a kitchen. There's a calendar behind her. Now, this supposedly took place in December. The calendar in the background says January or February. It says an Airy 2015. So, but Camille again was going strong against Amber, talking about she had two identical pictures again of wine being spilled. Again, looked completely identical. And she was like, well, which picture goes to what incident? And like Amber started getting like nasty and was like, how am I supposed to know? Look at the metadata. She's like, you expect me to know? And she was like, well, during your testimony earlier in this trial, you knew exactly what picture went with what. She was like, so now that I put both pictures next to each other, you can't tell me which goes to which? Boom. Brought up that she technically was arrested for abuse previously from her partner. And so then closing statements came out, and it was just the whole thing is throughout the trial and the closing statements, Amber's team burned their time so quickly that they didn't get a chance. They didn't really get to do as good of a job as maybe they could have if they had more time. But throughout the entire trial, Amber's team was burning through minutes and Johnny's team wasn't. The judge decided to keep it timed because she wanted this to be done. She didn't want it to become a circus. She wanted 6 weeks. That's it. By Friday, the 27th of May, right before Memorial Day, is closing statements. So, I don't care if you're in the middle of a witness, if your time is up, it's up. And like that last day, like Amber's team literally had like 5 minutes for closing statements. They blew through their time. So when it came to rebuttal closing statements, Amber's team had 6 minutes. 6. Johnny's team had another 38 minutes for rebuttal. So it's just like, it was just crazy. So then the jury went, it took them just about 13 or maybe a little over 13 hours. They did ask one question in regards to Johnny's side. And then they came back and they found in favor of Johnny for all 3 of his defamation. They awarded him $10 million. Then they technically also awarded him an additional $5 million, but for punitive like damages. But in Virginia, there's a cap of $350,000. So she's basically gonna pay. It's $10.3 million. Amber won one of hers, and was awarded $2 million. So obviously they take that out of the $10 million that Johnny wins. So she owes Johnny $8.3 million. She, Elaine, of course, went straight to the news stations the next day saying that, well, the jury was influenced by the media, by social media and stuff like that. There's no way they didn't look online to see what was going on. No proof, by the way. Basically, like, belittling the jury, belittling the judge, like, and I think she got in trouble because she was supposed to go on court TV and got called in to see the judge, and then she stopped doing interviews. So I think she got in trouble, the jury. And then actually this past week, or last week, I should say, Camille and Ben, Johnny's attorneys, went out and, very professional, went on and just talked a little bit about it. But Amber does plan to appeal, according to Amber's team, but in Virginia, and there is some back and forth. So as far as I know, she does have to pay a bond in order to appeal. She doesn't have the money for said bond. But there's people who saying that's not true, and I don't know. So, but as far as I know, she cannot appeal until she pays this bond. And what's funny is over the weekend or late this past week, she flew on a private plane to and from New York, Virginia to New York, and then back, and was in like another, luxury SUV. So you don't have money, you're spending money on private planes.
Yeah.
With your new PR guy who has been women are coming out saying that he sexually assaulted them. So, you're fantastic, Amber. I mean, but it's crazy. So Johnny wins. Johnny wasn't there for the verdict. He was already in London. When they found out he was in London, Eve, who's like Amber's little mouthpiece, Eve Barlow, tweets out where Johnny is, where he's playing shows and stuff. So now Amber's like, now you're calling out where he is so that Amber fans can go after him? Like, I don't understand. Every move Johnny has made or his team has made since the verdict has come out, Amber or someone from her team has made a statement. She sat there during court and said, I just want to move on. I just want to move on. Even before court started, I just wanted to move on. You only wanted to move on if you won. You lost. You lost by a jury of your peers, fair and square. Like, that's how it is. And you're throwing a hissy fit because you got called out for being a liar. And, and right away, it's a setback for women. It's a setback for women. And it drives me crazy because domestic violence has no gender. Men can be victims too. And I knew from the very beginning, because they kept talking about how Johnny had more power. He was bigger, he was stronger, he's a man, he has more money, and blah, blah, blah. Amber is a manipulator, a vindictive, narcissistic, like crazy, like woman. And you can like, you know, it's just annoying to me. And that's why I laugh, because June 1st is Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day. So it only seemed fitting that Amber lost on that day.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so we'll see what happens. If they do appeal, I guess we'll do a part 3 on this. But yeah, that's the basis of the trial. I know I didn't go over everything, but I mean, we've already been at this for a while, and it'll be a long one.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long episode.
but yeah, so you know, at this point now, the media has been against Johnny. You know, her PR team did a great job in getting the media on her side. But I just wish people realize, like, this isn't hurting women, this is helping victims. Now victims
Right.
know that there's a chance that they can win against their abusers. So whether you're a man or a woman.
Right. And because the other side of it also is that, okay, even if Johnny was actually abusive, the thing is that, well, technically speaking, in the law, right, you have every right to defend yourself, regardless of whether you're actually guilty or not of doing stuff. So, and the thing is that up to, you know, recently, and I'm just saying this as somebody who was like never diehard following any of this. So like I kind of feel like maybe I could sort of represent, you know, general public people who weren't actively following this that hard. You know, you need to hear both sides of the story, you know, because at the end of the day, none of us were there when any of these things happen. And, you know, so both sides like have the right to present evidence to prove that, you know, what they're saying is what happened. So it's like, well, if everything is like so one-sided on Amber's side, you know, how come Johnny has never been able to try to argue his side of the story either, you know? Because like I said, you know, even if this was at the point of like it's a criminal case against him, like, you know, he's being charged for domestic violence or whatever, he still has the right to defend himself. So,
Yeah.
you know, what's the deal with that? Thanks for listening, everyone. Catch us next time.
And see what we're going to talk about.
Because the 3 fates decide.